Hi, I'm Wayne Wagner with Visionary Wealth Management, and I'm joined today by Jamie Finn, the Executive Director of Foster the Family. At Visionary Wealth Management, our goal is always to help you do well so that we can do good. And for us, that means working with organizations that are improving the quality of life in our communities. Foster the Family is an organization that's really near and dear to our heart. And this year, we're proud to be announcing a $50,000 dollar-for-dollar match to help Foster the Family raise $100,000 this year to fund their ongoing work in the area of foster care, advocacy, and foster parent training. Hey, Jamie, can you maybe just give us a snapshot of what Foster the Family is and how you all work with foster parents and foster families?
Yeah, so Foster the Family was born out of my experience as a foster parent. We have been a foster family for over 9 years, and we've welcomed 30 children into our home for over those years. Some of them have stayed for 2 days, some have stayed forever. And as a foster parent, I became more and more aware of how isolating the experience was, how much my community maybe believed in what I was doing, but was ill-equipped to support and serve me. And so I really felt a burden for those around me, sharing my experience as foster parents who were lacking the same support and education and community surrounding them.
Right. So that has kind of led into a whole lot of different things.
That's right.
There's like podcasts and blogs and a book and an annual retreat, which it's called a retreat now, but it's the size is getting to a place that it's growing rapidly.
Right.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I began sharing about my experience as a foster parent and looking to encourage other foster parents and provide training and education for them. And that resonated with a lot of foster parents. So as you said, I have a podcast, I've written a book, and I speak to many foster parents. But what I felt compelled to do was to really get involved in the lives of foster parents in my community. And so Foster the Family went from me sort of writing and sharing about foster care to me looking to practically serve and holistically work with foster families in New Jersey. So our work began in New Jersey. We became a 501c3 and began gathering foster parents together for support groups and looking to meet their practical needs. So we began our foster care packages, which is when members of the community donate items, that clothing and formula for the baby and shoes for the teenager, that these kids come into foster care simply not having. Mm-hmm. Most kids who enter the foster care system are removed in an emergency setting with parents who are clearly distraught and law enforcement, and it's chaotic and painful. And so the kids are often given a trash bag and told to pick up whatever they can. They're brought to a foster family who is willing and hopefully loving, but just not resourced and doesn't have what they need to provide for these kids. So we show up with everything that child needs for the first couple of days. New clothing, everything to get them to school or get them set up in daycare or with a doctor. We're showing up with a meal for the family and looking to really speak to this family and the child. You're not alone in this. You are in a community, and we want to walk with you through this experience.
Yeah. But it really does take a village. It really does take a community. And we're so far from the little small town communities that we once lived in.
That's right.
As a society. We're now, so many things are institutionalized, and yet we're still talking about individual kids.
Right.
Where a foster family is meeting that child on what is probably the most traumatic day of their life.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter how many good decisions or bad decisions the parents have made before that moment, removing that child from their biological parents' family is got to be the most rending thing that child has ever experienced. And so you all are stepping in to help that family prepare and provide for that child at the moment of greatest need and greatest impact.
That's absolutely right. And I love that you talked about the village, because that is a part of our mission statement. Part of what I experienced as a foster parent is that people would say to me, oh, I've always wanted to become a foster parent. Oh, I would love to be able to get involved in some way. And I know that to be true of many in the church, in the community, those with funds, that they want to help this community, but they aren't directly connected to it.
Right.
And so part of what we seek to do is mobilize the community to get involved in foster care, that we are in the trenches with these families, walking with them, but you can help and we can connect you to providing child care for them, becoming trauma informed and background checks so that you can serve these families, helping fund the ways that we train them and provide for them, and really seeing that the community can play a big piece in serving the foster care community.
Right. Now there's two other areas I'd like to explore with you a little bit. And one of them I'll talk to, but one of them I'd ask you to talk to, and that's that you started in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And foster family is 5 years old at this point?
Yeah, 5.5,
right?
Yep.
So, but over the course of the last year or so, some things have really started to kind of percolate a little differently. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. We are so aware of how this need is far past our little community in New Jersey. And just we're searching for the ways that we could get involved in other spaces. And so we began by making our support group model available to other people in other places to begin foster the family support groups.
Okay.
So we're not just providing curriculum, we are actually teaching and recruiting and training leaders to begin support groups in their local communities.
Okay.
Then from there, once we begin to have a relationship with foster parents there and we become more aware of their needs and the way that the community is beginning to serve them, we have actually taken our model that we have in New Jersey and transplanted it into Metro DC, the DMV area.
Okay.
And Baltimore, Maryland, and Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Wow.
So our little effort in New Jersey has expanded to 4 other offices.
Okay.
And we are seeing the same kind of great stories and families being affected. I reached out to my leaders, just share some things that you've seen in the past week. And our leader in New Jersey shared that in a 24-hour period, there were 8 children who we served who were placed in foster care. Again, like you hinted at, the most traumatic day they've probably ever experienced, having nothing but the clothes on their back. And we were able to show up with everything that they need. 8 kids in 24 hours.
Wow.
Our Baltimore office shared about a family that had just lost their home in a house fire. I think it was a single foster mom, lost everything for her and her child. So we were able to show up with clothing and more than we would typically show up with, trying to fill the gaps of what they lost. We saw in DC a grandmother who wanted to keep her grandson out of foster care. And so we were able to provide a bed and clothing and toys and the things that she needed as she was stepping in for her grandson.
Right.
These are the stories we hear every day of the ways that we are helping foster families really do this work of coming alongside families, playing a part in kids' healing, and welcoming children into a nurturing and safe home where they can experience family and experience healing.
Our exposure to foster the family has begun to kind of ramp up as we spent more time with you and with the organization. At Vizionary, we're seeing the organization of the business of Visionary, first of all, we're throwing off profits. And as a business owner, I have to make decisions about, do we reinvest in the business? Do we find ministry or community organizations that are improving the quality of life for people? Or do I pay taxes on it? Mm-hmm. And for anybody who knows me, there's two options that are high on that priority list, and then there's about 87 other things, and then there's taxes.
Sure.
Right? But thankfully, we work with some really successful people who kind of share that passion of, hey, a tax deduction today might be better than taking $1 home tomorrow. So we have clients who are like-minded, and what we found is that as we communicate about what we're doing at Visionary to work with organizations like Foster the Family, we end up having clients come out and be really generous. And we've had a couple of clients that, I think we had a situation just this week where a client actually bought tickets to a pretty popular concert coming up this fall, and then suddenly the plans changed. So they're donating the tickets to Foster the Family. Foster the Family will then resell them. Client gets a tax deduction for an asset that's now going to be underutilized. And then Foster the Family will be able to resell those tickets, and the money will go into Foster the Family. So now I know that I'll speak to something else on our side here at Visionary. I think one of the most divisive political topics of the last 50 years is abortion. And everybody has an opinion and our nation has been ripped apart by this argument over what a woman should do with a child in her womb, as though she weren't a real person. Just like foster kids you're meeting them at the moment of most pain. A young woman with an unexpected pregnancy is at her most vulnerable. And yet our whole political establishment has polarized our nation for 50 years. And now, because of the recent Supreme Court decision, it's being pushed back to the states. So we're going to have more young women of small and low socioeconomic means. This will disproportionately hit our communities of color.
That's right.
Disproportionately hit our inner cities, where we're going to have more children born into either unexpected, unwanted, or unsupportable situations. And I find it fascinating that Foster the Family it's 5 years old, but it's just kind of percolating and boiling of one location to 4 or 5, and then I sat in a room with a group at the field retreat with a group of like 60 people from across the country who are all trying to put together support systems and support groups like this around the country. I think there's a cultural intersection here between the rise of Foster the Family and the shift in the national rhetoric on abortion, where I think Foster the Family is really uniquely positioned to step into the void that's absolutely going to be created by more young women having more pregnancies that they're forced to carry to term because of the rules that have changed and the policies and politics that are shifting. And so for the people like me who have been pro-life across the country, it's not time in my mind to go home and say, yay, the Supreme Court voted our way, and so therefore the argument is over.
That's right.
I think that now, over the next 5, 10, 20 years, there's a huge opportunity, and there's going to be even more need for stepping into this specific area of our society and our culture to help and serve families that are being torn apart by a system that's just not built. It's not built to carry the weight today, let alone the increased weight that's going to come because of these shifting policies.
That's right.
So
So I was earlier this year a part of a summit in DC of the pro-life leaders around the nation, and that was essentially the theme of our time together, that our mission is still the same. Our mission is still to support these children and their moms, and the way that we focus our efforts and the language maybe that we use is going to shift, but the mission is still that child.
Right.
And so once that child is born, the question, hopefully by the same people who were fighting for that baby to be born, becomes how do we support? How does the church really come alongside a family and support a family? What resources do they need? How can we bring care? And foster care is certainly going to be at the front line of that discussion, because there are many children who are going to need caring, healing homes. And unfortunately, what we see is that though foster families are willing, about 50% of foster homes close within the first year.
Wow.
And that is typically because of lack of support and resources. So you can have willing people who say, yes, I am pro-life. Yes, I want to walk with these children and women. And within 6 months are so burnt out that they have lost their fight. And so we see that this is a big part of what we're looking to do. We are looking to walk with these families so that there are healthy, happy, long-standing foster homes where kids can find healing.
More moms who can say we've fostered 30 kids
Sure.
over the last 9 years. Yeah. At the field retreat that May and I attended, it was so impactful to sit in that darkened room with 825 foster parents, and they've all got glow sticks, and then you're reading these one-liners that some of them are just so painful, right? And some of them are just so raw and human. You know, I am fostering a child that doesn't want to be in my home. And I can only imagine as a foster parent who's done this altruistically, done this out of an abundance of love in their own heart. They've opened their home, they've made themselves vulnerable, they've accepted a child in, and this child is actively doesn't want to be here.
Right.
And I can only imagine that they feel so alone. So to stand in that room with 825 foster parents and see a couple of hundred glow sticks go up, where these people are saying, hey, yeah, that's me. That's me, that's me. You're not alone. And for you to go through some of the biggest pain points for foster parents, and for them to just be able to visibly see, hey, I'm not alone. There's other people in this fight. There's other people who know what I'm going through. That's what we want to support. So we think that Foster the Family is at kind of a pivotal point in its growth trajectory. We think the need is going to be enormous in the years to come. And we think you're uniquely positioned to help and to serve and improve the outcomes for foster kids and their biological families really across the country. But there's there's going to be some growing pains here. That's kind of why we're doing this match, is to say, hey, look, if we can come in, support with $50,000 and a dollar for dollar match and raise $100,000, it's kind of $100,000 pause for Foster the Family that you guys don't have to think too much about raising that. So you can take that money and kind of, okay, in the growing pains, like, how do we grow best from here? That's kind of the reason, a big part of the reason we're doing this right now. But if there's people seeing this who maybe they're thinking about being part of the other side of that 50,000, can you maybe give us an idea of how, from Foster the Family's perspective, how that money is going to get spent? Maybe speak to that?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the 60 leaders that we had gathered in a room. We have these gatherings, these support groups that are sort of the buds of what we're doing that we hope will bloom into more fully, holistically serving and supporting foster families. So we have a goal of expanding our support groups by launching 50 new groups this year.
Wow, okay.
That means that right away we are impacting a community, pulling foster parents into that experience that you explained of being seen and known and understood. We are educating them and resourcing them. We're beginning to build the local church and support networks around them to see them and serve them. And then we start conversations with the leaders about what it would look like to really multiply our work there and to bring in staff and to begin a full branch of how we're walking with families. So we're in conversation with some of our support groups in different strategic locations around the country that, to be frank, we're at a standstill because of the finances. So we have the need, we have the community gathered, ready, we have the leaders in place, and we're not able to begin our work in those locations because of the financial need.
So if you're seeing this and you're feeling led to be involved in some way, I would encourage you to reach out to either support this organization monetarily and help us raise $100,000 this year, or perhaps reach out to Foster the Family and see how you can personally get involved, either regionally in New Jersey or in your area of the country. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes with us here to hear our heart on this. And Jamie, thank you so much for making the time to share your heart and the work that you do.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for your support and thanks for this opportunity to share.